Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielson and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Lock Shop. Nielson and Huss back with you once again, getting you set with a Week 14 NFL Best Bets episode. We got a partner parlay for you as well. If you're watching on the Twitter stream right now, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Closing in on 400 members over there. And, of course, if you're not yet subscribed to the podcast, make sure you do that. All brought to you by our wonderful partners at Coolbet. Pat Gregoire from Coolbet is going to join us pretty much right off the top here. And old Mr. 4 for 4 in Winnipeg. How you doing, buddy?
You know, Dusty, I tweeted out yesterday. We'd been talking about this, and the record's been getting really good. And I figured, okay, this is a good time, not necessarily as a Barry Horowitz humble brag, but almost as a PSA for people to be watching the Lock Shop and checking this out, because I'm not sure there'll be a heater like this again for a long time. And the minute I tweeted out, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get killed tonight for sure. Well, it was the exact opposite. I mean, I went back and watched the the layout of that game in yesterday's, and I said it was a really tough it was a bizarre game. But man, I mean, pretty much the 3 field goals early, we were cruising for the over 3.5. The under 4.5 touchdowns was quite clearly going to happen in the second half. I didn't think I'd get the Rams to cover. I felt good about the under. And then not only did we get the cover, but Baker Mayfield freaking comes back 98 yards with no timeouts. Only the Raiders could screw up as fantastically as they did last night. Wow.
I should have taken my own advice yesterday. Remember when I was just like, I probably shouldn't bet on the Raiders anymore. I've said it 4 times this year, and starting now, I'm never betting on the Raiders again this season. That's like Derek Carr. They only threw the ball like 19 times. They're on like 19 passing plays. What are you doing? Doesn't make any sense. Oh, it was frustrating. Frustrating game to watch. Cool story for Baker Mayfield, though. I mean, that's wild. And you're right. Only the Raiders could have that happen to them. Like 98 yards, no timeouts for a dude who was in a different city 3 days ago. Just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
We got to get Patty in here. I'd love to know if there was much Baker Mayfield Rams money line action on that game last night. Pat, what's going on? How about that last night, huh?
3 blown double-digit leads this year, and the margins have been 20, 17, and then 13 last night for the Raiders. And you said it, Dusty, like their quarterback just met their entire team like 48 hours. Like he didn't know the playbook. Like, and he looked like a quarterback that didn't know the playbook. And it wasn't until the last 2 drives where he kind of could just go out there and ball. And it was the 2-minute offense. And maybe that's the way that they should have been playing all game long. But again, super awesome story for Baker Mayfield. Now I think his everyone slept on me narrative actually kind of works, because he was the only Heisman first overall pick draft winner that was a underdog somehow all these years. But now actually people have slept on him, so maybe that narrative can work. But I don't think this is so much Baker Mayfield and the Rams coming back from victory. Like, I think this is just going to prove how inept this Raiders team is in the second half. Like, this is embarrassing, like absolutely embarrassing what they have been able to do this year, or what they haven't been able to do in closing out games. Like, if they win that game last night, they're sniffing around and kind of back in the hunt, and at least, saving their season. But that loss there, man, like they got to blow everything up. Like this. Like, McDaniels is an absolute joke. Like, unbelievable how bad this team is.
You summed it up perfectly. McDaniels is an absolute joke. Like, it's the truth. Like, God.
Hold on. I just found this stat because I was looking up the blown leads thing. Josh McDaniels is now the Raiders' all-time leader in double digits hat-time leads. He's only coached 13 games. How is that possible?
It shouldn't be possible. That's so bad.
And it's one thing to do that against a quality team, but against what's left of the Rams with Baker in that situation, it is an all-time choke job. And to be honest, I mean, it still is incredible that it happened the way that it did. I mean, first of all, they could have gone for the 1 yard and just won the football game. And I guess I sort of get it. Like, what are the Rams going to go 98 yards with no timeouts and get it done? But they found a way to blow it. Quite a way to get things going, though, for a week with Patty. As we mentioned, I mean, we were talking about this on the fantasy show earlier this week, week 14, and we have 6 teams on buys, which certainly whittled the possibilities down a little bit for the best bets. Any big or nice leans early on for you when you're looking at the board for Sunday?
Yeah, I there's a couple, and this one it makes me feel sick to my stomach, just with the two teams, and the way that the one team's kind of heading up in the one direction with the Bengals and the Browns, but the Browns have owned Joe Burrow, and
He's 0-4 against them.
Team. He's 0-4 against the spread. I know they've been playing great, and like, to be honest, they're a team that, like, if I was thinking about sprinkling a little bit on a future bet, whether it's to win the AFC or win the Super Bowl, that's probably the team. But for whatever reason, this defense has given them a ton of fits. These guys can run the ball. I imagine they'll continue to run the ball like crazy, even though they have Deshaun Watson, who looks like a guy that had been sitting on his couch for more than half of the season. So that's a lean there. It's a gross one. It's an uncomfortable one. But that's one of my early leans for the week. Kind of looking at some of the totals, I actually really like the over in the Vikings and the Lions. I know it's a pretty high total at 52, but Dusty, your Lions team, man, I think we can finally start giving this team respect. Like, I think this is a solid team. I know the record doesn't really show for it, but they're a team that can put points up. They can't really defend all that well either, but I don't need them to defend in this game. And we know the Vikings defense is fraudulent as well. So I think there's going to be a lot of points in this one. So I like the over in that. Those are probably my two biggest leans so far. I haven't done too big of a deep dive into the board just yet, with all the World Cup going on, a lot of great hockey going on, and to be quite frank, which we might get into a little bit later, some NLL lacrosse that I've been focusing on for week 2. I haven't done my deep dive. I'll be doing it more this afternoon, but jumping off at the board, those were probably my 2 favorite bets so far.
Well, I mean, just quickly on that Lions-Vikings game, I didn't put it in the best bets. I might jump on the Vikes money line just because. I mean, wrapping my head around a 10-2 team being an underdog against the Detroit Lions, who are still under 500, is, I mean, you'd have to go back a long time to find a similar situation. But it's just shown. I did read a stat that if every 1-score game in the National Football League was reversed, what the standings would be, the Vikes would be 1-11. So hey, they've been getting it done in these close games, and frankly, I think this is going to be another close game on Sunday. So it should be fun. Normally, you don't think about the Lions as must-see TV, but they really have turned into that. Even back at the start of the year, their games were thrillers.
And I can't believe I didn't even bring that up when talking about that game. The fact that, and I still go back and check the line, like, there's got to be something wrong here. Like, this doesn't make sense. If it was Jake on the program right now, I know that would probably be his fishy line of the week. I know he loves picking out those weird lines. But for me, yeah, that one just doesn't make sense. And I totally understand. A lot of people, maybe including the odds makers, think that this Vikings team is fraudulent, and the Lions are trending in the right direction. And maybe it's a great matchup because it could be, an offensive showdown, but 2 is scary. But I mean, if you're going to bet the 2, you might as well bet the money line at plus 110 right now. So I agree with you there. Put it on my card. I'm going to take it. Sorry, Dusty.
Hey, more on the Lions in a second. I'll lay that out. Let's just say that. Hey, before you go, buddy, what do you got some NLL action for us or what?
Of course, I always have some NLL action. A little bit of a smaller card this week. Week 1, it was awesome. A lot of great action. Just a note for the bettors. Just a historic week 1 with offenses. We saw I think it was one team had 19, two teams had 18, a couple teams almost combined for 30 goals between the two games. And that just doesn't happen in week one. Normally, similar to a lot of other sports like the NFL, like the NBA, it takes a while for the offenses to start clicking. Well, they were firing on all cylinders. So a couple leans for me. I'm going to stick with that theme. Saskatchewan Rush, San Diego Seals, over 22.5. Both these teams were lighting the lamp last week. San Diego is the heavy favorite to win the West. They brought in a couple of studs on offense and Curtis Dixon and Kevin Crowley. And then on the flip side there with the Rush, they're looking like the Rush of the past, that dynasty where they won multiple championships. They had a bad season last year, but again, last week scoring 18 goals. So I love the over in that one. And I don't normally like betting, I guess we can call it the ball line with the spread, because we do see a lot of these close games. The Rock are actually -2.5, but you're getting +110. And Huss, I think you might have been at the airport watching that Rock game.
I was just going to bring this up.
They beat the wheels off Vancouver. And I know Vancouver, again, looks like they might be a bottom feeder in the West. But Toronto, and I'm not being biased because they're partners of Coolbet, but they look like they are an absolute wagon this year. And Rochester had a great opening weekend, but I think that their numbers were a little bit inflated against a bad defensive and weak goaltending team in Georgia. So give me the Rock -2.5 at plus money.
All right, buddy. Well, great info, and best of luck with that. Best of luck with all the NLL stuff this weekend, and we'll catch up next week.
Yeah, when do we see your mug on TSN next?
Luckily you don't see me until the new year. So January 13th, I've got a little bit of a break here. So just means I get to watch a lot of lacrosse, football, hockey, and everything on the couch while I do some game prep for my next game back in Halifax.
Well, you were looking like $1 million US tax-free on the tube last week. And as I said, that Rock pick, it was -1.5. And then I'm in the lounge looking and it's 10-1 in the game. I'm like, this is a massacre. We'll see what happens. We'll have to talk a little more lacrosse as we get out of football season and look for more things to sprinkle on here on the Lock Shop.
Absolutely. Wide world of wagering, my man.
Yes, that's right. We'll see you later, man. There you go. That's Pat Gregoire from Coolbet Canada, which does bring us to our best bets for the week. And I am on the Detroit Lions. And I sat quietly while the slander from you and Pat Gregoire continued. And look, man, you've been on the Lions way more than I have this week. They've been one of your best bets multiple times. So before I make my case, is like, you're not fading the Lions here, right? You're probably just thinking the Vikings are 10-2 and they're a dog, so you got to take them.
You know what? Listen, this is going to be a close game. It's going to be a fun game. I can't wait to watch it. And I just think that the one thing that the Vikings have done all year long is win the close games. And the Lions have
should be a close game.
Now, that's completely turned around over the course of this last 4 or 5 weeks. But I think there is still an element of, are we really? I just can't believe that the Lions are favored the way they are. I mean, like, to be honest, it's almost begging me to take Minnesota based on what they've done all season long. And let's not forget, the Lions know what's going on right now. They know that everyone thinks that they are paper tigers right now, and they know that they're underdogs going up against a team that's historically been one of the worst around. I can't say enough about the job that Dan Campbell's done, the passion that he has, the fight that this team has right now. And this, in a lot of ways, could be the Lions Super Bowl. So I took it. I did not touch this game when it came to my best bets. But as I said, I think just with the 10-2 team like Minnesota playing in the division, a game that really could go either way, I think all of the intangibles in those close games might give the Lions give the Vikings a little bit of an extra tick. So
even subconsciously, you're thinking the Lions.
Hey, notice that they're not on it's not on the card right now.
I know.
We will see on that. I know I thought that was something that we could have maybe put in the partner parlay, but I actually really like the ones that you served up where we finished it off. But tell us why you're confident. This has been a long time coming for you to come on this program and have this much juice behind the Lions.
I don't know if in my lifetime Detroit has put together a run like they've put together in the last 5 weeks. They're 4-1 in the last 5 weeks. Their only loss was a close one to the Buffalo Bills. Last week, now it was the Jags, I get it, but they scored on every single possession until a kneel down at the end of that game. Like the Detroit Lions scored on every possession. Not once did they have to punt that ball away. They scored on every possession until they took a kneel down to seal away the victory. Jared Goff is at his best against zone defenses, and the Vikings play a ton of zone defense. And as bad as the Jags are, the Vikings pass defense is actually worse. Like the Minnesota Vikings pass defense is one of the bottom 2 in the entire National Football League. The Detroit Lions are at home, where Goff has been money the entire season. And when they have Amon-Ra St. Brown in the lineup, their offense is the 7th best in the National Football League. So there's a lot of reasons. I can see why they're the favorite, as ridiculous as it is. And you kind of mentioned one thing that I also think is important in this game. Now, I know the Vikings are fighting, with the Eagles and the Cowboys and stuff at the top of the NFC. But the Lions got to have this game. This is a very important game. They're not out of the playoff picture just yet. They're at home. I don't even think this is a spot where the Vikings would take them lightly, to be honest with you. So with the way they've been playing, and their offense going up against a horrible Minnesota defense. I love the over. I'll probably end up buying it down a couple of points and throwing it into some parlays on tomorrow's episode. But I think the Detroit Lions actually go out and win this football game. Minnesota isn't a 10-2 team. Sometimes that catches up to you. In fact, if you actually look at like a lot of the analytics, like a lot of the deeper numbers on both sides of the ball, Detroit's a better team, which makes no sense. But I'm going to go with my guys. This might be one of the times bites me. In fact, remember against Green Bay, I was just like, Aaron Rodgers always owns the Lions. Well, I can't do that to my guys again. So I'm on Detroit here, -2 to get things going, buddy.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I'll tell you what, why don't we, go with Dallas and Cincy, and then we'll talk the Jets, and then I can get to run my my
transition over. Okay, so Dallas, it's a huge line. And I think as of right now, it's 17.5. I put it at -17 because it's still like -116 or something to get it to 17, just in case I get the push at 17. So for the last 2 days, I said, definitely not going with 17-point favorite. Definitely not going with a 17-point favorite. And then I just look at it, and I don't know. Like, I think the Cowboys could cover this by only scoring 25 points. Because I don't know how Houston's supposed to score points. They're going back to Davis Mills, who hasn't played in 3 weeks. They had a bye, and then he was out for 2 weeks, I think. So he hasn't played in almost a month. They're going back to him. Brandon Cooks is out. Nico Collins is trending towards being out. Their defense is not that good, not at the level that's going to stop the Dallas Cowboys. This is the worst offense in the NFL going up against the best defense in the NFL, and the worst offense is going back to a quarterback who hasn't played in 3 weeks and has a run game that Dameon Pierce started the season nice. Last week, he was okay, 70-some yards. The 2 weeks before that, he didn't even hit like 20 yards. So their run game has dried up. They have nothing going for them offensively. How in the world are the Texans supposed to score points against the best defense in the National Football League at home? So, I don't expect this to be like a 40-20 cover. I don't think Houston scores 10 points in this game, so I don't think Dallas has to do too much to actually cover the 17. And I'm not afraid of a backdoor cover because the Texans are missing so much offensively. So I'm doing it. I got to swallow a little bit of puke in my mouth, but I'm taking Dallas on the biggest spread of the season in the National Football League.
We should talk to Pat and the guys about maybe an exclusive where it's the Dallas defense versus
that
the
outscores.
Offense.
Yeah.
That's
actually not a bad idea.
In that Cleveland game last week, I think if you had Cleveland in fantasy, they had about 35 points. And they put 3 in the second half. So full disclosure, I was actually going to take the Texans plus 17.5. Was looking for a game, and I'm like, that's just too big of a number. And listen, taking big underdogs all year long has been very profitable. I slept on it. I woke up and said, listen, I'm putting a different pick in. There's no way I can in good conscience throw out the Texans in the lock shop right now. So that is a stay away from me. And you're going with Cincy.
I am.
Just talked a little bit about Cleveland and their ownership of Joe Burrow and the Browns and the Bengals. It is a very, very strange phenomenon the way that they've beaten him. I mean, take it from a Chiefs fan that can't beat the Bengals. This is a wild game and an interesting situation for Deshaun coming home for his first start in Cleveland.
Kind of describe it.
Oh, it's in Cincy.
It's in Cincy, which is the big one. They already beat them in Cleveland. Kind of describe it the same way Pat did on the other side of it. Like, he doesn't feel great about it. It's a little bit of a greasy lead. I overall did not like the card this week. Like, I struggled. We're missing a few games. I'm going back and forth through the list. I'm trying to flip around, but I decided to go with Cincy for a couple of reasons here. One, Joe Burrow is 0-4 against the Cleveland Browns. Like, is that going to continue? I have a hard time believing that a guy that's never lost to Patrick Mahomes is going to go 0-5 against the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns that are going to Deshaun Watson, who was awful last week. Think about this. And Cincinnati's defense has been getting better and better. The Cleveland Browns could not score a touchdown offensively against Houston last week. Now you're telling me all of a sudden they're going to go and put up 2 or 3 touchdowns against the Cincinnati Bengals? No chance. Plus, the Browns secondary is awful. Joe Burrow should be able to pick them apart the way that he's been playing as of late. On top of that, the only game these guys have lost in the last 2 months was against Cleveland, so call it a revenge game. Like, go out and prove that what they did to you in Cleveland does not stick here on the road, which is another important part here. Cincinnati at home has the 4th best defense in the league. On the road, they're 17. These home road splits are important for this game. Cleveland's offense at home, pretty darn good. Bottom half of the league on the road. So, and Deshaun Watson made them worse last week. Like, Cleveland with Deshaun Watson last week was worse than Cleveland with Jacoby Brissett. All of a sudden, he's going to turn that around against one of the few legitimate Super Bowl contenders. I think this is that get-right game for the Bengals against the Browns. Joe Burrow is 2-2 against the spread so far against Cleveland. How about this? I was listening to a podcast earlier today. Joe Burrow is 16-3 against the spread in his last 19 games, which is insane. The one that he didn't cover, one of them, was against the Browns. I don't think that happens again against Cleveland. The offensive line is playing a little bit better now than it was in that last game, because if you remember that last game for the Browns, their defensive front was the big difference in that game, right? I think they get that sorted out. They can't stop the run either. Cleveland can't stop the run. So Joe Mixon trending towards returning. You still got Samaje Perine. I don't know. I don't think I've got anything left in the tank. I've emptied it all. I'm on Cincinnati -5.5 here.
Love it. And then the game that we were both on together, and to me, this was the first bet that I made. And to be honest, I was eyeing this up a couple days earlier at 9.5, thinking that it would be going the other way. But man, with the Jets defense, the way they're playing, and listen, I know they're challenged offensively, but man, getting 10 points against a Bills team that has been winning games, but they haven't been crushing opponents the way they did at the start of the year. Perfect example was that game we just talked about with the Lions. Like, I think that the Jets defense can keep them in games with anybody right now. So if we're going to get double-digit 10 points against the Bills, I think the Jets can hang in there. And I guess there's always the potential of a backdoor cover, but I'm not sure that it gets to that. I think this is going to be a tight game throughout the whole 4 quarters. Now, do I expect the Bills to win? Yeah, but I love getting 10 points with this Jets defense against anyone, even on the road in Buffalo.
Yeah, Sauce Gardner against Stephon Diggs is a very interesting matchup. And if you can slow down Stephon Diggs, changes Buffalo's offense a little bit. Now, Buffalo has been running the ball a little bit better as of late as they mixed in Cook. But yeah, I just think it's a big number for a defense that's as good as the Jets. Interested to see how White plays in this game. That game against Buffalo last year when he had 5 turnovers and it looked like the end of Mike White against the Buffalo Bills. I mean, is there a worry that happens again? Maybe ever so slightly, but the Bills defense, especially without Von Miller, has been trending not poorly, but maybe in the wrong direction a little bit. I feel like this line is a line that we would have had on the Bills like in week 3, week 4, when you're like, the Bills are a juggernaut, as opposed to right now, the Bills are a pretty good team. Right? They're not a juggernaut. The Bills are a pretty good team right now. And in a divisional game, to be having to give 10 here, I don't know. It's a big number for a Jets team that defensively can keep themselves in football games. So I'm with you on the Jets.
Well, you know what? And listen, the Jets are playing I mean, great defense. And I don't know if you've noticed how much they have rallied behind Mike White. Like, I think that they thought that Zach Wilson was a spoiled brat, to be honest with you. And they are more together than they've been before. And let's not forget, this team's 7-5 right now. They are still right in the thick of things for a playoff spot. And this could in fact be a playoff preview of a matchup between like a 2-7 squad. So give us the Jets, too many points, plus 10 to start things off. And that's the your final pick as well. I am laying a few points, not big points, but let's start it off with the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Baltimore Ravens. Historically, maybe the great rivalry in the last 20 years in the National Football League. I mean, Tomlin, Harbaugh games are always phenomenal. But to me, these two teams are going in very different directions. Like, we talk about the Lions being frauds at 10-2. I'm going to say that the Baltimore Ravens, no, listen, they've won these games. Think of the games that they've lost too. I mean, they blew a 20-some point lead against Miami. They're a team that when they are at their best can certainly play with just about anyone. But man, they are not, you can't really rely on them. Lamar Jackson's sort of been on this downward trajectory and now he's out. And we're going to see Tyrone Huntley. I'll be honest, I would be taking the Pittsburgh Steelers in this game, even if Lamar Jackson was in, because I love what's happening in Pittsburgh right now. And it's funny, I do have a preseason future on the Steelers under win totals. I think I'm going to lose that bet because I think that they are playing so well right now. And we talked about this last week, the return of TJ Watt. He is such a difference maker. He changes that defense immensely. And, with a relatively inexperienced quarterback going up against that defense, I think it's a big opportunity for Kenny Pickett and the Steelers offense to continue rolling. So -1.5, take the money line if you want. Obviously, we're taking spread picks right here. So I will lay the 1.5. Hope they don't win by 1. That would really cheese me off. But I like the Pittsburgh Steelers to keep it going. I think much like the Detroit Lions right now, they're in a good place. They're winning football games. They're playing well. They believe in each other. And Mike Tomlin always gets the most out of his club. I like them to win. Very interesting matchup between the Niners and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who would have said that Brock Purdy would be a favorite against the GOAT, Tom Brady? And full disclosure, I'm still sick to my stomach about the way the Buccaneers were able to come back and win that game. We talked about the choke job of the Raiders last night. What about the Saints on Monday night? That was absolutely crazy. Here's the thing. The offense of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers looked absolutely brutal until they were allowed back in the game in the final 3 minutes. And newsflash, that ain't happening in San Francisco against the 49ers. And much like last year's NFC Championship game where Shanahan wasn't trusting Jimmy Garoppolo and only had him throw the ball 8 times, I think San Francisco's fine almost with whoever is playing quarterback right now because of that defense. Nick Bosa is going to be in Tom Brady's face all afternoon. He doesn't like to get hit. He doesn't like to get rushed. I think this is going to be a long, long day for Tom Brady and the Buccaneers offense. And I know it's Mr. Irrelevant playing quarterback. I think Kyle Shanahan has the weapons around him, will game plan to put him in the best chance to succeed. And I think they win this game comfortably. No issues laying the 3 points with the Niners against the Bucs. And then the final pick, I had to go back and forth on this one. As I said, I actually considered putting out Houston at 17.5 on the lock shop. That's not happening. But the Sunday nighter, this game has been flexed into prime time, Chargers and Dolphins, because the Chiefs and Broncos have taken out. By the way, just as a quick shot at the Broncos, how bad do you have to be to get a Patrick Mahomes game flexed out of prime time? That's where we are with the Denver
Pretty
Broncos
pathetic.
right now. The NFL can't bear to put them on national TV anymore. So we're getting a great matchup. I feel really sorry for Justin Herbert. I think he is phenomenal, an incredible player. Everything has crashed in and around him. Last week, he had basically the practice line blocking for him. Their skilled players continue to be injured. And on a defensive side of the football, they are historically bad against the run. If you've got Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert in fantasy, I wouldn't at all be surprised if those guys blow up with big numbers. I just don't know how the Chargers are going to hang with this Miami offense right now, considering how brutal their defense is right now. So I mean, I saw this number at 3.5 or 4 earlier. It's 3 right now. I don't think you're going to get a better number than that all week long. So Miami -3 in the Sunday nighter, the fourth pick to go along with slight favorites, Niners and Steelers. And then we're going to take the 10, a big 10 in that AFC East matchup against with the Bills and the Jets.
There you go. There's our best bets for week 14. If you're watching on the live stream right now, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Just search the Lock Shop on all of your podcasting platforms. And we do have the Partner Parlay for you. We've moved this from Saturday to our Friday episode to give you another day to get on it before we get to Sunday. And we've got a 3-gamer plus 400 when it's all said and done. And you just laid out the Pittsburgh moneyline pick, and obviously you really like them. I'm throwing Seattle money line on here. The spread's 4 right now. I thought about that game for my best bets, taking it -4. Feel more comfortable with it. Money line on the Partner Parlay. Seahawks at home. Carolina has looked a little bit better as of late. They're coming off a bye, I believe, as well. So maybe some more time for that coaching staff to kind of get things under control. But Seattle at home, this is a big game for them, and their defense has tailed off a little bit so far. So that's why I'm a little hesitant to give the 4. But I do like Seattle money line at home against a Carolina team that's certainly still trying to find their way now with Sam Darnold back at quarterback. And then we decided Tennessee's actually a 4-point favorite against the Jags. Moved it down to 2.5 for the parlay hustle so we don't get hit on that 3 or 4. And it's 4-1. What do you think about that Tennessee play?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is all banged up, and that game's in Tennessee too, right? Yeah,
it's a Titans home game. They're a little bit banged up too. We'll have to take a look at the injury reports as we work away over the next couple of days. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he didn't practice Thursday at all. I'm sure he'll play. Everybody's saying he's going to play, but clearly not 100%. And Tennessee needs to get it going here. They need to establish Derrick Henry on the ground again, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, and guess what? Perfect team to do that against the Jags. The Jags, listen, they've got some nice wins this year. They've been horrible on the road. Part of the reason why I love Detroit with the best bets last week in a game that a lot of people thought was going to be really close. It wasn't at all. This is a great get-right game for the Titans, and a game that they can, for all intents and purposes, pretty much wrap up the AFC South if they haven't already. Obviously, Indianapolis at 4-8-1, and the Jags at 4-8 right now. Texans aren't going anywhere. So, weird way. Titans also fired their general manager this week, which was, I guess everyone just saw what A.J. Brown did to them and said, wait a second, how the hell did we let that guy get away from us? I like it. 2.5 for Tennessee, no problem. Seattle money line. I mean, this is just another chapter in this great story that is the Seahawks season. And it doesn't even matter that their first-round pick is getting worse and worse because they've got Denver's pick, which is pretty much guaranteed to be a top 5-er. And as I said, we rolled out Pittsburgh. Really like the way the Steelers are playing right now. They're at home. Ravens are down to their second-string quarterback. So let's put this together. The boys juiced it up a little bit for us to 4-1, right in our sweet spot for these Lock Shop Partner Parlays. I like it, Dusty. And it's up right now at the Coolbet exclusives.
Yep, just go right to the Coolbet website. You'll see Coolbet exclusive. Click on it. Lock Shop Partner Parlay is right there. You can ride with us 4-1. Couple money line plays in the Titans -2.5 at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's going to do it for our Week 14 Best Bets and Partner Parlay episode. We got a few more parlays, touchdown scores coming your way on Saturday. And, of course, anything you want to bet, World Cup, NHL, e-gaming, anything you want to bet, you can find over at Coolbet. Use the code LOCKSHOP, all one word, LOCKSHOP. When you sign up, you get a 100% deposit bonus on initial deposit up to $200. Huss, enjoy the rest of your Friday, buddy, and I guess we'll talk tomorrow.
You got it, man. Hopefully I can crack the top 10 tonight with a hockey pick or two, or maybe this soccer, and take a swing at number 1 coming up on the weekend. It's been a lot of fun, but yeah, enjoy it, folks, and we'll see you tomorrow with a couple of other parlays you might want to jump on for the Week 14 NFL Sunday.